Hello and welcome to Mind the Flat. I'm Amy Isles and I'm joined by...
Me, Tom Crowther.
And me, Chris Heffernan.
And today's episode is titled Reduce, Reuse, Recycle. Any guesses what we'll be talking about today?
Amy.
Go on, Chris.
We're going to talk about reducing, reusing and recycling.
How exciting! Yes, we are.
I'm dying from the cringe factor here. You guys are actually kidding me.
I don't think I've ever seen Chris so
I'm
excited
doing it.
about an episode.
I'm leaving. You've
Tom's off.
you've
We've
pushed
lost
me out
Tom.
too much now.
We'll just have to delete his name from
We're going to win the argument.
Yes!
I'm not having that.
Now that God's gift to arguments has left the room.
Yeah. Quote unquote.
No,
Yes.
not having that.
Yes.
Right. I said I thought when I was 15 that I was God's gift to arguments, and I no longer think that. So
And what was the prompt response to that in our kitchen, Tom?
everyone thinks I am.
Ah,
I'm pretty sure that's how it went, isn't it?
yes.
It was pretty much what's changed, but
Okay.
we're only
Right,
joking.
we've digressed already,
Yes.
and we've not even started.
Okay, so we're going to kick off today's episode with our favourite reduce, reuse, recycle stories.
Oh, it just gets even
This
better.
is just thrilling, isn't it? We are going to try and make them quite funny. So we're going to kick off with Chris and a reduce story.
I really don't think this is my favourite story because it actually
Okay.
provides me a lot of annoyance. And
Most
so it's
entertaining then.
Chris's rant.
yeah.
Okay.
Reduce rant.
So, what is worse, everybody, when you go to the loo and you require some loo paper?
Oh, some
Okay.
highbrow here. Let's go.
having finished your trip to the loo, and you look to your left where the loo roll should be, and oh, Amy Isles has decided that you should reduce your loo roll consumption,
I'm just looking
and
up the
so
environment.
has left you one sheet. And in this case, one sheet most definitely is not plenty.
I'm just being conscious of the environment about the amount of paper you use, Chris.
So
Going to reduce that.
And so Amy's response when I suggested, Amy, why just leave one sheet? That's not enough. And I said, I'll show you that it's not enough by removing all the loo roll from the bathroom and leaving you one sheet. Her response was, well, don't worry, I'll use the towel.
Ah,
As a joke!
no, probably moving on.
Actually going to use the towel. Let's just put that out there.
So that is Amy's
I was
enforcing.
joking.
That is Amy enforcing reduction on us by restricting us to one sheet for our daily business.
I really hope that no one listens to this podcast over breakfast.
Good point, good point.
There we go.
Yeah.
There you go. That is my reducing rant.
Mainly it's because I forget, I think, rather than trying to save the environment. But we'll say that's why I do it. Who had the reuse story? Oh, it's me. I had the reuse story. Yeah, this is actually something that I got from you, Chris.
Yeah.
Last year, I remember you visiting Naomi's flat, and you came back and you were like, they had the most ridiculous idea. They had a drawer full of cardboard, which they would use as plates from leftover pizza boxes. I said, what a great idea. And the look on your face, the look of horror when you thought of using cardboard as a plate. I mean, paper plates are made from cardboard.
So let's clear this up then. So people would get pizza delivered, and then rather than throwing away the pizza boxes, they would keep them in a drawer and use them again so they don't have to wash up plates.
Yeah.
Yeah, and other types of
God.
maybe Amazon boxes probably as well. Spare
See,
bits of
I'm
cardboard
not sure
that you
about
could use.
I think as long as the cardboard is clean, if it's had a
Famously,
bit of
old
pizza
pizza boxes are very clean, aren't they? Definitely not greasy at all.
yeah, but the bottom bit you'd chuck away. But the top bit, if there wasn't any toppings or anything stuck to it, and I said this to you at the time, I'm not talking about serving a 3-course dinner or pasta or something. But if you've got a piece of toast or something for breakfast or lunch, I had a crumpet this morning. And I got out a plate, and the plate was hardly dirty when I'd used it. And I was like, I'm going to have to wash that up now. But if I'd have had a piece of cardboard...
You could have destroyed the environment by using it rather than recycling
Well,
it.
no, I could have then recycled it afterwards.
No, you couldn't.
Yes, you could.
Depending on-
We've had this argument.
Depending on what if your crumpet,
Yeah.
as
you
long as
hardly get
nothing
any-
drips off it, that's okay.
Exactly. I don't have butter on
But-
my crumpets, so it's all good.
In that one occasion, then maybe.
Right. recycling story. We ready?
Yes.
I've realised that all three of our stories are somewhat gross in different ways.
Yeah, this is
Chris
true.
is toilet related. Yours is gross,
Why
dirty
do I
food
feel
related.
like it's all coming back to me? Like, I'm not a disgusting person, I promise.
Oh no, this one was a nice. This was Valentine's Day last year. Chris and I had an absolutely wonderful time alone in the flat together. We were it was me. I think was on recycling duty. I walked downstairs with the recycling bins. It was a Wednesday, so sports night. Loads of lads outside getting drunk. I walked down the steps, and as I get to our front door, a big rugby player looks me in the eye before he bends down and throws up all over our porch. And so I tried to do the recycling, but I couldn't put it out because there was things in the way. And so Chris and I,
Lots of carrots.
yeah, Chris and I spent a larger portion than anyone shouldn't have to do on Valentine's Day, clearing up sick from our porch.
But then what, didn't you like come down the stairs and hide behind the stairs? at one point?
Yeah.
We don't want to confront them.
I can't believe you
It was
two.
huge.
I
It was
cannot
huge.
believe. And then I came home, didn't I? And you
Was very
told
feisty.
me.
Oh, I would have gone out there. You know, I've got the water.
I
Like, chuck it
would've
over his face.
Yes, Amy sounds like that.
When did I come from Essex?
When you get feisty.
Do I go Essex when I get feisty?
You get terrifying when you get
I
feisty.
think I go more northern when I get feisty.
Hey, I would have got that. I would have gone, hey, you're not the one on my porch. Have this. Boom. That better?
Oh dear. Okay, well.
I think also we should just say, for listeners that don't know Amy is tiny, okay? So this rugby lad would have dwarfed Amy. Would have been
But
like
you know,
Bilbo taking on
sometimes-
Gandalf.
Sometimes all you've got to say is, excuse me, that's not acceptable behaviour.
Oh
yeah.
I never got punched in the face.
No, but often it works. People will be like, oh yeah, sorry. Like when we were at the
Oh
rugby
yeah,
last
sorry.
week.
I'll remove my sick from your porch. No, you won't. You're just going to run off.
But like when we were at the rugby last week, there was some guys stood in front of us, some like big rugby guys, and one of my friends couldn't see. So I was just like, excuse me, we can't see. And they were like, oh yeah, really sorry. And just moved out of the way.
I think that's slightly different.
That is
so
very
someone
different.
just vomited on your porch and you go, excuse me, but here's a bucket of water and here's a mop. Could you please clear this up? No. I'm on a night out. What's wrong?
I don't know.
I'm with Chris on that one. I feel the chances of
Yeah,
someone
but I
actually.
wouldn't have hidden behind the stairs though. Come on, lads.
Oh, come on, lads. You see, that is now enforcing gender stereotypes on us.
You're still doing the northern thing. You
I
can
am.
stop when you're not pretending to be Amy.
Boom, boom, boom. Mind the flat. Boom, boom, boom. So, on to the main discussion. Which is best out of reducing, reusing, or recycling? So, in a bit of a twist today, I'm actually going to kick us off because we normally throw it to someone else. But I've got the topic of reduce. So essentially, the reason why we recycle, reduce and reuse is to you reduce the amount of waste we use, the kind of net total of the waste. But reducing as a first step, I think, is definitely the best way to go, because then there isn't as much to have to recycle and there isn't as much need for reusing as if we reduce the amount of waste we have. And I think a lot of us can do more to kind of do that, whether it's using reusable containers when you go shopping, reusing plastic bags, just kind of reducing the amount of food that you take in, just generally stopping buying and consuming so much. And I think we can all do that. I think we live in a society where consumerism is becoming more and more, and we don't need it. It's not necessary. It is possible to live a zero waste life, or certainly reduce the amount of waste we produce.
So are you suggesting we should all grow our own fruit and veg?
I think there's definitely fruit and veg that you can grow, and obviously it isn't possible for everyone, but
Like
even
us.
Yeah.
And our non-garden flat. We could. There's a lot of moss out there on our roof terrace. I wonder whether
yummy.
how long do we have to wait before we can start actually planting stuff in that depth of moss? You know.
But I don't think it's necessarily about growing your own stuff. I think it's about reducing the amount that you buy.
Yeah.
And I know this is probably where I'm guiltiest for producing waste. I chuck out so much food waste from our fridge because I go on the Asda shop and I think, oh, I might need that. And I think it's difficult, especially when you're cooking for one person, buying fresh produce, as you probably should to live a healthy life, making sure you use all of that, because there's only one of you, and the fresh stuff goes out of date so quickly. You end up throwing so much of it away.
Yeah, I think, like, so for me, one of the meals that I like to cook is a butternut squash risotto. But for that, I have to buy a butternut squash, and I use a third of it. But I can't buy a third of a butternut squash.
Yeah.
I know there are some things where you can buy like half a cucumber, but I think it really helps if you can like plan with other people what you're going to be eating, and then you can like use each other's stuff. And what, Chris? You're giving me a
So
look.
isn't that where recycling is the best? Because, like you say, these are things that are very difficult to reduce your consumption. You end up with this inevitable amount of waste, but if you recycle it, it's no longer waste.
Yes, but you still have to produce it in the first place, and so you're using all the water and resources and pesticides and whatnot to actually grow those plants, or even meat. That's even worse, as we've discussed in a previous podcast. And you're throwing it out. Yes, you might be recycling it and send it to compost, but you're still having that original impact every single time. And I don't know if the composting balances out the... Obviously, it doesn't get sent to landfill and whatnot, but I don't think it balances out the negative effects that come with originally producing that produce, because it has quite significant effects, as we've said already. So.
Yeah, but not only food waste as well, kind of other waste like reusable plastic, non-reusable plastics even. Like if you go to a coffee shop and you buy a coffee and you don't take a reusable mug, then you've got this thing, this container, this cup, that's the word I'm looking for, mug, cup, and you can't recycle it because it's coated in wax. And I think if you reduce that by making them recyclable or using reusable containers, or just not buying coffee so often, like we don't really need to go out and buy those type of things. If you make one at home, it reduces that effect, and there's not so much waste produced in the first place if you don't do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes out of like the choosing between, do you do it at home or do you go out and do it? And obviously if you do it at home, there's going to be a lot less waste associated with it. Whereas if you go to a coffee shop or something and you buy a coffee, obviously it's a completely different product, but for a lot of people they just want a coffee. And so going to a coffee shop and getting a filter coffee, for instance, that's ridiculous. Like I can see people going and getting like a latte or something because you've got
it's something where there's skill in making it.
Exactly. Whereas if you're just getting a filter coffee and you're buying a single-use cup, then that's a complete waste, because you could just buy a thing of coffee and then make it at home on your own, and you've completely cut out the middleman. You can use a mug, and you've got no waste at all there, apart from the bag the coffee came in, which a lot of the time is recyclable. And so, I think that's a better way of going about it, or at least one way of going about it.
And I think definitely that the amount of plastic that just is not necessary in packaging, so it's not even it needs to be replaced with something else, it needs to be recyclable. It just doesn't need to be there. The amount of times you get like some sort of a box, say the size of say a shoebox.
Oh, Amazon's so bad with this.
And then inside you've got this plastic frame that then the toy or something you've got, especially like children's toys, is secured in. Now that toy, if you could have got some scrunched up paper, say, that could be recycled if you needed to cushion it, and you'd dramatically reduce all this extra plastic that's there to make the toy look more impressive. Look at the size of this box that it's coming in. And that is plastic that's just completely unnecessary. So that is an easy way of reducing it and just saying, don't need it, get rid of it. Yeah.
And if people cut out buying things like that, then obviously because of the kind of system we live in, the companies will kind of cotton onto it, and they'll start reducing it, because if we make it a thing that we care about, companies will then care about that through market mechanisms and whatnot. And
I think essentially living a zero waste lifestyle is, people say it's difficult, and it is, but it's kind of the same lifestyle change as going on a diet. You're like going on a diet, you're focusing on swapping out unhealthy foods for stuff that's more nutritious, stuff that's going to help you lose weight. And in a similar way, living a zero waste lifestyle is similar. You're kind of looking at the changes you can make to the way you live your life to reduce the amount of waste you produce, and I think that's the way we need to go, really. Didn't your sister try that over January?
So I was going to say that it's very, like, as you said, I was doing Veganuary, changing my diet at the same time as my sister was doing zero plastic, a month of zero plastic, and obviously it's very tough to do, and she had a little jar where if she ever had any plastic that couldn't be recycled, she'd put it in the jar, and she went through the whole month trying as hard as she could to use as little plastic as possible, and so that is like one way that you can really make an effort in terms of trying to reduce your plastic consumption. Yeah. But I think as we've kind of noticed as you're talking, there's a lot of reusables coming into it.
This is true.
And I feel like this is potentially where there's a little bit of play between the two, and there's an overlap between reduce and reuse. But I feel like reuse is the best way to achieve reduction, because you've got things like you don't have to cut out going to a coffee shop for a coffee if you bring a reusable cup. And you can have that experience. Like if you like that and you're going with a friend or something and you're getting a coffee on the way, bring a reusable cup with you and you can still get that if you don't have time to make it at home, all this sort of stuff. So I feel like that's one like really good way to kind of achieve the end goal of reducing waste, is to reuse.
On a bit of a tangent there, this is a question that's been playing on my mind, and I feel like you will know the answer. If you take a reusable coffee cup into a coffee shop and you've had a coffee in there before, will they wash it out for you?
They usually rinse it out. They won't wash it with soap.
Yeah, of course.
But obviously it's just had coffee in it. So yeah, they'll have a hot tap there, or just a cold tap they can run it under and redo it for you.
Because I've got 2 reusable mugs, and I never know I've never taken one in like that's had a coffee in before, because I'm always like, I don't know whether they'll wash it out for me. Thank you for that information.
No worries.
There you go, listeners.
Yeah. When I used to work briefly 3 shifts at Starbucks, that was something that I did regularly. People brought in their cups and we just rinse it out, just in the same way that we'd rinse out the milk jugs. And then,
perfect. I know.
But I suppose, what other things are you thinking you can reuse? Obviously, coffee cups is quite an obvious one.
Yeah.
Are there other things you think?
So obviously, one that's very closely connected to that is the use of things like what Amy has here is a chili bottle. Do some tapping.
Some Foley work.
There we are. Amy's chili bottle.
It's actually a Wilko's one, because I'm a cheapskate.
Fair enough. But yeah, things like that. Obviously, it's a bit of a fad, but it's quite a good fad. It's not like loom bands or something.
Yeah.
which in fact probably have a distinctly negative effect. But yeah, like these sorts of things are great for like reducing the amount of single-use plastic bottles that are used. Almost everyone has a bottle now, and I think in the last 6 months or so, there's been a huge increase in the amount of people. And I was actually reading up, and there's something quite proud. It comes out of Bristol. There's a woman who set up an app called Refill, and it businesses can sign up. So like coffee shops, restaurants can sign up to say, if you have an empty reusable cup, or reusable bottle, you can bring it to our business and we'll fill it up for you, and you don't need to feel obliged to buy anything. And you have this app, and you can use the app, and you can get like rewards and stuff for reusing, for using it. And so there's over 200 places in Bristol that have signed up to it, and it's spreading across the world now. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, really good way, because obviously that's another barrier, is you've got a reusable cup or reusable bottle, but you're halfway through the day, you've drunk your water, you're in the middle of a city. What do? You kind of have to go to a shop and buy a bottle of water, and then you kind of defeated the whole object there.
Yeah.
But now, and obviously there's a little bit of like social stigma around going to a business and asking them to do something for free and then just leaving without buying anything. But because they're now opening themselves up, it's a lot more acceptable.
So these are, again, we're sticking sort of with drinks, sort of day to day. But then, if we think on larger scales, I'm just sort of looking around my room, like my bedding would have come in probably a form of plastic packaging. The TV would have come in packaging. All these packagings aren't necessarily things we reuse. So the things you can reuse are quite limited, you could say.
I don't know. I think you can reuse some packaging. Like, I've had stuff that's come in boxes before, and I've used that boxes to kind of send off a parcel or something. I suppose then this is where you kind of get that merger between reusing and recycling, because you can reuse it in ways that it wasn't originally intended for, like making things out of the cardboard boxes.
It's a bit like upcycling, isn't it?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
a way. Yeah, and that's another big aspect, I think, as well. And that's the kind of interplay between recycling and reusing, and a lot of like businesses, coffee shops and restaurants and stuff upcycle. Like when my parents had a coffee shop, they used an old church pew as one of the benches because it was going spare, and it was better than throwing it into landfill. So they took it in and they used it as a long bench in the coffee shop. And so I think like things like that are really good. And on furniture specifically, there's another campaign. It's like a charity, and if you're throwing away furniture, you can donate this furniture to this charity, and they will give it to someone from a low-income family that can't afford to buy this type of furniture. And so if you had like a spare bed frame going, you just bought a new bed, rather than chucking it out, you're having an environmental impact on not throwing it straight into landfill. You're also having a kind of charitable impact on people that can't afford to buy these things. It's kind of you can have a dual effect there, which I think is really nice.
Well, I think that's where I come on to recycling, and I think why recycling is so necessary is there are things that we are either a long way from being able to cut out, so as far as reductions are concerned, and there is some stuff that the reusing of it isn't particularly easy or straightforward, and isn't necessarily going to reduce things further down the line as such. So you said like you use boxes to create things. You might just do that because you have the box. It might not be a necessary thing to do. So whereas recycling takes all that other stuff that's left over and makes all that into something else. So I think a perfect example is your peelings. So from food, most of us, you could reduce it, but we need to eat carrots, potatoes. These are things that we need to eat, and they have peel. Or some things have ends that you can't eat. And recycling makes that no longer bad for the environment. So if you took them into landfill, it produces loads of methane. It does not decompose in a sustainable way, as I think some people do think. And actually, methane is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So methane is very bad for sort of the global warming and stuff. So whereas if you put it in your food bin and you recycle it, either it will be in an in-vessel composting system, so it's put with garden waste and stuff, and over quite a long period of time, up to sort of 3 months, it becomes soil and compost. Or you can have anaerobic digestion, which is where you use microorganisms to break down the food waste in the absence of oxygen. And in this way, the methane is then collected, converted into a biogas, and used to generate electricity. So I think this is where recycling is really good, because that is stuff that you go, well, I can't really reduce this because I do need to. I am eating all this food. You can't really recycle. You can't reuse your peelings. So this is where recycling in that way is really beneficial, and it's then having that knock-on effect of it's then producing a renewable energy.
But there are, as you said earlier on, you kind of use this against the whole reuse thing, but there are so many things that you can't recycle, many plastics.
There's more things that you can't recycle than things that you can't. I think you can be really innovative with stuff you can reuse, whereas recycling you either can or you can't. It's more black and white.
And I feel like this is where Amy's one kind of takes precedent here, is that the only way to kind of force people to provide recyclable plastics and recyclable containers is to reduce your consumption of the things that use them, and then kind of cause people to feel like they have to produce recyclable stuff. I think that's it's definitely happened over the last couple of years, last decade or so. But it certainly hasn't happened enough. Like even things that come in recyclable containers still have non-recyclable film around them, or plastics around those containers. Like imagine a punnet of grapes. You get the punnet, that is the container is recyclable, but the plastic that it comes in isn't. And a packet of crisps. I think of how many people eat crisps. And that's not recyclable. The big one that they come in, or the little packet of crisps, none of that is recyclable.
But lots of stuff is recyclable. I think that if you look into it, a lot is that. Now that we at home have a food bin, a compost heap, and a recycling bin, the actual stuff that goes in our bin is minimal compared to what it used to be. There really doesn't have to be much going in your bin. If you really check it out, you'll be surprised by the number of things that actually can be recycled.
But I feel like in that respect, though, you have to reduce in order to achieve recycling. Like 10, 15, 20 years ago, there would have been a hell of a lot more things that weren't recyclable, and the way that we've achieved that is by reducing the amount that you can't recycle.
Yeah, so I mean, it's reduced as an instigator as opposed to a technique in itself. So rather than sort of reducing the use of things for the sake of reducing the use of things. You're saying we reduce the use of things to encourage companies to change the stuff they're using, aren't you?
Yeah,
that
definitely.
form of reduce. So reduce, which I think is slightly different to sort of when you say reduce, reuse, recycle, what that's actually meaning.
I don't know. I
feel like
reduce is and as going back to my original point that I made at the start, that is why reduce is at the top, because it kind of encompasses the other two. Not only because of like personal reducing of stuff, that was phrased well, but because you by recycling and reusing, it negates this reduction in waste.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's the main thing here is that all of them have overlaps with the others.
Yeah.
And I think like the reason why it comes into 3, not just because the reason why reduce comes at the top, but the reason why they're all there together all the time is because they're also necessary to one another.
Yeah.
It has to be a kind of 3-pronged everyone.
You can't reduce without recycling and reusing.
I think it goes in this order as we've good job we did it in this order, because it is firstly try and reduce the amount of waste you're producing anyway. So buy less food, buy less things in lots of packaging, just for its own sake. And then once you've done that and you think I'm still having I need a water bottle, I can't just cut out a water bottle, right, then you go I'm going to get a reusable water bottle, or I'm going to get reusable tubs for my pasta. Like, I think it should be in all supermarkets that you buy a tub and then you scoop your rice or your pasta into that tub and it's weighed at the checkout.
It's like a grocer's.
Because the amount of plastic
there are not single use, but zero waste shops that are springing up, but they are so minimal at the minute. It needs, as you say, it needs to be a kind of nationwide thing, because they're amazing, these shops, and they're often independent businesses, self-funded, self-started, and their initiatives are brilliant. They have absolutely zero waste, and it should be more prevalent.
Yeah, and so then once you've reused as much as you can, then you get to the point where, well, what's left? Like, I did need this cardboard delivery. What can I redo? I did need to peel that potato, and so then you go, right, I can then recycle that. And I think if you go through that is that chain. It's this. Look at this part of your life, then this, and then this.
Yeah.
So I think recycling in some ways is sort of the easy one, because you just go, can this be recycled? Yeah. Can this? No. But really, we need to sort of go all the way back up the chain and go, right, have we reduced this to start with? Like, here I am, I can recycle this, but did I really need this in the first place? Or could I have reduced it, or could I have used something reusable? So I think it's about looking at your life in that chain. They're built in a chain, not as individual things.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree. Well, that's come to quite a nice conclusion. We're all going to be eco warriors. I used to go to a club at primary school, actually, like a little eco warriors group.
Yeah, we had eco warriors.
Did you?
You'll be amazed to know I wasn't part of the eco warriors.
No, Chris. Guess who was the president of our one? I mean, there were like 6 people in our year group. So.
Wait, in total, or just at this Eco Warriors thing? 6 people in your year group?
When I joined in primary school in year 2, when I came over from Ireland, there were 11 of us.
What?
There might have been 15 actually, but there was no more than 20.
What, your whole school?
No, in my year group.
There
were 5 lads, 5 boys.
Yeah, we had. Well, we like a lot of the classes were doubled up, but I'm pretty sure we had 3 year 5/6s, 3 year 5/6 classes of 30. So we'd have had about half, but instead about 45 in each year group.
No, there were. I'm pretty sure there were 6 girls, 5 boys when I joined. I think.
That's mad.
There were a couple. No, there must have been a couple more. There was no more than 16.
Wow, it's going up, isn't it? 6, yeah, 11. 16.
Actually, now I think there was a full class of 30.
Yeah,
in fact, I think we had 100. No, genuinely, I think.
But yeah, eco group. So we used to. It was eco club. A lot of people joined it because we used to get to eat our lunch first. And
nice.
So the way it used to go was that I think it was like Key Stage 2 would have their lunch after their break, like the playground bit, and then you'd go in and have your lunch. And Key Stage 1 would do it the other way around. And so a lot of people joined in Key Stage 2 because it meant that you could go into a classroom and eat your lunch, and then over the rest of the break you do all your planting and your composting and that sort of thing. But yeah, I used to love it.
I did. We used to go up to the zoo for it. I think there was about 6 of us in this club. We used to go up to Twycross Zoo, and we used to have like a little class up there, and then do some like eco work up at the zoo. It was really cute.
Lovely.
Am I the eco warrior for the flat though?
You are.
Yeah, absolutely, most definitely.
Little recycling dictator. That's what you like.
I swear you're on bin watch half the time. Like, if anyone goes near the bin, you're like, is that recyclable?
Yeah, we need a bit of that in our lives. I think
do.
this podcast has definitely shown that we can't just get on with our lives. We need to make a conscious effort to, or have Chris make a conscious effort to help us out with the recycling.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. We've done an episode all about sort of veganism, and I know we went down a very ethical route, but we did mention sort of the environment, and I think this is up there. Reduce, reuse, recycle with that sort of environmental ethic.
So easy to remember as well.
I know.
Reduce, reuse, recycle. Boom, boom, boom.
Thank you very much for listening.
And if you want to get in contact, you can find us on Facebook. We're Mind the Flat Podcast.
On Twitter, we're at mindtheflat_pod.
And Instagram at mindtheflat_podcast.
And if you want to respond to anything we've said in this episode or suggest a topic for another week, you can head to our Reddit. That's r/mindtheflat.
Or alternatively, you can drop us an email at mindtheflatpodcast@gmail.com.